I think we'll get started. So first of all, I want to begin before anything else to apologize for the confusion mix-up on the timing of this particular session. That's my fault, and it was I put two different times of the starting of this, so my apologies, and I hope that it wasn't too great of an inconvenience for anyone. I did want to start with with some introductions, so you'll know who everyone is. But first, let me welcome you to this session, and good morning. I am Carmina Hughes, and I, along with Ellen Cooper, who you can see up on the screen, are the co-chairs of the Grants Committee for the Baltimore Women's Giving Circle. The session today is for applicant information, so to help bring you through a little of the application process, which started yesterday. The portal opened yesterday. Along with Ellen and I, whose jobs, by the way, are to try to make sure that the grants process runs smoothly, we have with us Sally Ward, who is one of the co-chairs of the circle. Ann Daniels will be running the Zoom for us and the PowerPoint presentation, and Marianne Pinkard, who is one of our administrators for the online system that you'll be using to make your applications, is here to take you through the ins and outs of that. First thing is to let's do a little housekeeping. Make sure that you're on mute so that we don't hear anything in the background. We will take answers or questions, and try to answer those questions about every 4 or 5 slides. And you can put your questions either in the chat room, or you can raise your hand virtually in the reaction box if you do have a question, and we'll do our best to respond to those. The purpose here today is really to give you some instruction and insight on the grants process, both from a technical and a substantive perspective. For those of you who have applied in the past 2 years, there isn't a lot that's new, but what is new will be highlighted for you by Marianne and by Ellen. And for those of you who are applying for the first time, we hope to make it as clear and simple as possible. And let me just say, this isn't the end all. There's a detailed guide on our website, which is at www.thewbgc.org. And if you go under the grant section of the website, you will see that there's a detailed application guide that provides more information than we will today. If at the end or during any part of the process you find that you've hit a roadblock or you're confused about anything, don't hesitate to reach out to us at grants@thewbgc.org, and we'll do our best to get back to you as quickly as we can and sort it out. Just a couple of things. The agenda is an effort to cover most of what we think has typically been questions that we've had in the past. So there's the agenda, and it will hopefully will cover the biggest issues. But again, if there are any concerns, you should reach out to us directly. A couple of important dates that I want to highlight for you right from the start. Yesterday, our portal opened for the application, so you can look and see what the application looks like as long as you're registered. And it closes on December 15th at 5 p.m. And that's not midnight, it's 5 p.m. And every year we have some folks who, not every year, but we have in the past have had groups who were under the impression it was midnight. When the portal closes, it closes, and we don't have a lot of control over how to reopen it. So we'd urge you to keep that 5 o'clock deadline in in mind. So first person we're going to hear from is Sally Ward, who, as I said, is one of our Circle co-chairs, and she is going to tell us all about our mission and our vision. Sally?
Yes, I just want to say welcome. I'm so glad you're interested in learning more about the Baltimore Women's Giving Circle grants process. We have been granting, sharing money since 2001 when we were formed. And as a grant reader for the past 10 years, I want to share with you that what we all start with is the mission. And we look at our mission and then look at the grant to see if they're in alignment, because if they're not, they're not, and we can't share our money with you. So our mission is, through collective giving and collaboration, the Baltimore Women's Giving Circle supports organizations that advance opportunities for women and their families in Baltimore City and Baltimore County. Circle members participate in grant making, education, and community engagement. Our vision, the Baltimore Women's Giving Circle, contributes to a more just, equitable, and inclusive Baltimore where all women can flourish. So please make sure that what you're asking money for falls under our mission, and we'll have a wonderful time together during our grants process. Thank you for being interested. Carmina?
Thank you, Sally. Next slide, please. So the grant criteria is pretty simple, and in the next slide after this one, we'll talk about what the kind of bedrock rules are. But essentially, the grant criteria is to provide organizations who are eligible are those who support and advance opportunities for women and their families to live safe, healthy, and productive lives, and are serving populations in Baltimore City and Baltimore County. It's pretty straightforward. Your application should really make the case as to how what you do aligns with the mission and advances opportunities for women and their children. There are a couple of things that are not defined, but I can tell you how we define them, although it's not written down, and that is who constitutes the families. And as we look at it, the families are the children of the women in these two jurisdictions, and they include boys and girls. And we frequently get the question is whether we only support girls, and no, we support boys too. And geographically, one of the questions we often get is, must the organization be actually based in Baltimore City and Baltimore County, or can it be based somewhere else as long as services are being provided to people in those jurisdictions? And the answer is the latter. We have had situations where we've had organizations who've applied who've been from either national organizations or have been in other parts of the state, and they wanted to expand and branch into Baltimore City or Baltimore County. And as long as there's a presence here, and as long as they are serving people who are in Baltimore City or Baltimore County, then you are eligible to apply for a grant. Thank you. Now, these organizational eligibility rules are actually pretty immutable. So the first is that to be eligible, you must have a 501c3 nonprofit status from the IRS, or have a physical sponsor who does. And a physical sponsor, a physical agent, is an umbrella organization that providing organizational support typically and resources to community leaders who want to develop their communities or support their communities. And it can be that we the Baltimore Women's Giving Circle have a physical agent, and that's the Baltimore Community Foundation. So it's it doesn't matter how it is that you have 501c3 status, but we can't give to groups who are not 501c3 qualified. The next rule is also a hard and fast rule, although there are interpretations that gives us some leeway. We can only accept one grant application per organization. There are two exceptions, and one is if there are multiple organizations with discrete leadership, and we also usually look for discrete finances within a larger organization, such as a university, for instance. You might look at a university and its primary purpose is in the academic area, but the university does other things as well. And those separate groups can constitute separate groups sufficiently independent of one another that they could conceivably file two applications, and they wouldn't be disqualified for that. I think another organization to think about are some of the very large but local groups that are, again, have many discrete organizations within them. As long as the leadership is sufficiently independent and the activities are sufficiently independent, then I'm sorry, there you go. Then that shouldn't disqualify you. And then the other is that you can be under the same, you can share the same fiscal agent or fiscal sponsor. If that's your only link to each other, then that does not disqualify you either. Now, can we go to the next slide, please? There are some expenses that are not eligible for funding, and I think that some of these are pretty straightforward, but there are two that I wanted to talk about just a little, and that is we can't fund you for capital improvements. That is fixtures. Those are things that you expect to be around for a long time. We fund for activities or staff that directly support either your program or a project that you are trying to start up. So if it's something that is going to be there forever, it's a building, it's the office furniture where you do your work, not where you provide services. All of those things that are kind of there forever are not eligible for funding from us. We also cannot fund any program that requires a particular adherence to a particular religious belief or requires participation in a religious service or project. That does not mean that if you are a group that is affiliated with or part of a religious organization, you can't apply. That's not what this means. What it means is you can't make it contingent upon providing services that someone has to share a religious belief or participate in some type of religious service, such as a prayer service, a Bible service, or something like that. Okay, next slide, please. So one of the first decisions that you'll have to make is whether you are applying for a project or an operations application. Which type of grant do you want? And this change came about in 2021. It used to be that there were various ways that you applied in the past, but it's from 2021 until now, when we did our last major revision, we broke them out into two different types of applications, and neither is favored above the other. The circle doesn't have a preference as to whether whether you choose operations funding or project funding. It's just so that you make it clear in your application why it is you're in one or the other. Um, operating funds is basically what it sounds like. It keeps the lights on in your group. It maintains the work and services you already do, or expands to a different age group population of women or geographical areas. Those are the types of activities that can be included within your operations funding application. It can pay for existing staff, or if you need to add staff because you're doing something different, or you want to change how you do something, such as adding a case manager or an outreach counselor. These are all things that you can include in an operations application. Operational funding is a bit more flexible than project funding, which must be used to support a particular project in the manner described in the application. The money has to be discrete and it has to be dedicated to whatever it is the project that you are trying to start up. So project funding is often selected in the application process to help launch a new service or program never offered before. Again, you can use it to pay for staff in this new program, or specific program supplies or outreach effort. And when you talk about specific program supplies, perhaps this is going to be a workforce development program, and that's not what you typically do. So you may need to have things like computers, if that's what you're training the folks that you're serving for, or it could be kitchen appliances. Whatever it is that you need could be included in this type of application. Or the other is to launch or sustain a program aimed to specific groups of women when your organization mission is to support the community at large. Many examples, but there are many examples of this. But again, one is workforce development, and we've had applications where in the past it was offered to everyone, and this particular organization wanted to create a cohort of women, to just women, to participate in the job training, and they wanted the startup funds for that. Or also to launch, the other way is to launch an innovative program delivery approach or new initiative that may require different staff, equipment, or software. Either way, you may only choose one. And if you begin one app and you decide your request really fits into the other better, then just cut and paste and start again. Until you hit submit, you can change your mind. Okay, if we could have the next slide, please. Just to clarify a little bit, the differences between the two, operating and project expenses, because that, some of that will drive how you place your application. Small tables, tables and chairs, easel stands, countertop equipment, those things are essentially, they're not fixtures that and are in support of direct client services, but are ongoing expenses and need to be replaced with some frequency, or can be actually used up. Then those are all things that are operating expenses. Project expenses are identified to be necessary to launch or support a new initiative or project. Again, we would expect to see a separate budget for project expenditures, because that money must be spent. If that's how the grant is written, that money must be spent for the project that is proposed and identified in the application. The line can be clear, blurry at times. So make your best judgment. The grant teams will be understanding, and if in doubt, just reach out to us at the grants committee. And but really, it's very difficult to prejudice yourself one way or the other. But just make your best judgment on that. And with that, I think I'm going to turn it over to Ellen.
First, Carmina, let me just share that there has been a question in chat.
Okay.
And Susan Novak Smith wants to know, will we be receiving a copy of these slides?
No, the answer is that what we have already online is the application guide, and that provides much more information than these slides do. This is a much higher level synopsis of what's in the guide. So we would suggest that you look at the guide. I think that's probably the best place to go for information. And if that doesn't answer your questions, again, reach out to the grants at the bwgc.org, and we'll do our best to answer any questions you have.
And any other questions? Okay. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the grant application process. The largest award that we give is $25,000, but you can ask for less, and you might want to do that if, for example, you have a specific project in mind and your project is limited in scope and the amount that you need to fulfill that project is less than $25,000. The award of grants is based on who gets the most votes of the membership of the BWGC and not on the amount that you request. So I urge you to request the amount that you need and not to try to submit less than you need in order to advance your chances. The portal is now open as of yesterday, and as Carmina said, it will close at 5:00 p.m. on December 15. All applications are submitted online, and once the portal is closed, it's closed. And so I really urge you not to wait until December 15th, but certainly to keep in mind the 5:00 p.m. deadline. I think we're going to remind you of this again later on because we just don't want you to miss out. The application portal can be found at www.thebwgc.org. In terms of awards, the grant awards are determined by mid-May, and grant recipients and also those who unfortunately cannot be funded will be notified by the end of May. Funds are distributed in June, and you will have between June of 2024 and May of 2025 to spend the funds. Next slide, please. This is a flow chart, and it's maybe a little bit hard to follow, but let me just describe to you the process. Usually we have about 18 teams of 6 to 8 grant readers who review 6 to 8 applications. There are 4 phases of this review process. In January to mid-February, we conduct the initial review of applications. From mid-February to the end of March, we conduct site visits of the most promising applicants. The others are notified that we're unable to fund them this year. Then at the first part of April, teams make a final decision as to who to recommend for funding, and they write up grant recommendations. In April and May, these grant recommendations are sent to the voting members of the circle, and All Circle members are invited to review these grant recommendations. There's also a short training session for them that they take in order to vote. So the decision is a decision of the Circle as a whole. At this point, at the end of May, grant applicants are notified of the results of this process. Next, I'd like to turn this over to Mary Ann, who will give you a more technical overview of applying.
Hi, everybody. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. Yep. Oh, no, I just lost my presentation. There we go. So what you need to do is to begin your application by going onto the Giving Circle website. And if you look at the very top, you will see apply for a grant. See where that yellow arrow is pointing. When you see that, click that and you'll go to the next page. I do want to note that if you are able to adjust the size of your window on your computer screen, and if the window is more narrow, that top line moves into the first line of the photograph. So it can be very difficult to see. If you don't see it, just adjust the size of your window or just look really hard. One of those two will work. While you're on that page, if you're interested in seeing the types of grants that we gave last year, you can scroll through and see our featured grant recipients. Next slide. The next slide will allow you to scroll through our grant application overview, grant process, and the schedule. You need to, if you want to do that, click Learn More, and then you will go to the next page. This will take you to the grant application overview. You'll see the reference to the guide to the BWGC grant program that Carmina talked about. That will give you more information about the grant application and the process. And there is the email to use if you have questions that aren't answered in the guide. You want to then continue to scroll until you see the link for the program guide. Next page, please. Next slide. There you go. There is the link. And then there is a new document that we put in probably last year that gives some guidance on how to choose whether you want to do a project application or an operational funding application. I want to point out that those training resources, the applicant tutorial and the video tutorial, are from Foundant, who is the company that this platform is from. It will show you generally how to complete an application, but it is not consistent with exactly what we are funding. You should find everything you need in the guide. And then you're ready to start your application. Next slide. When you first arrive on this page, you may see a box that describes the Grant Hub, which is another Foundant project described as a grants management solution for grant seekers. There'll be, if you're interested in it, there are a couple of places where you can look to see what it's all about. That I will say that the Grant Hub is just for you. It doesn't impact the standing of the Giving Circle. We have no idea who is using it or looking at it or anything like that. If this is the first year that your organization has applied, you will need to set up an account by creating the Click New Account button. If you're an existing user, you've applied with us before, and you remember your logon info, then that's easy. Just enter that information there and log on. If you are a past applicant, but you've forgotten your password, please just click the Forgot Your Password link. You'll get instructions on how to reset it. So for all of those things, you do not need to contact the Giving Circle. You should be able to figure that out yourself. However, if someone else from your organization has already registered for your organization, please do not set up a second account. That is one where you should contact us for help, and we will help get you access to the account that is already set up. This happens most often when an organization's executive director or program manager has changed, and the person who left didn't leave their password information. So just contact us for help if you run into that issue. Next page, please. So this is where you need to decide which grant application you want to use. And because the grant portal wasn't open yet, there is now a little red box over on the right side that says apply for each of those two different applications. I couldn't get it there because it wasn't open yet. So I promise you there's a place to apply and you can just grant that. You'll also see if you want to do this Grant Hub thing, that's where you can look, and there's a little question mark, I think, next to it. If you want to learn something more about it, that's where you would go. Next slide. So even with the guide, if you're unsure of what application you want to use, you can go into each application and click the question link list. See that midway down on the right? That will let you scroll through all the questions. And you can also export a PDF of each application if you'd like. So here I have collapsed each section of the application so you can see what the sections are. When you open the application, you should see the questions for each section. But if you don't, we're all sort of used to those little arrows. Just click the arrow and the drop down will show the different sections. The first section, entitled Cover Sheet, requests contact information relative to the proposal, plus some demographic information with drop-down boxes and short answers. In the narrative section, there are questions to help guide you. And again, we're going to go back to the guide. There are some additional questions in the guide if you want some hints for how to put together a more detailed application. You are not required to answer all of the questions in the guide. They're just there to help if you choose to look at them. Also notice that at the very end of the application is that Save Application button. Make sure that each time you're in this platform, you select that if you want to leave the application and come back to it. If you do that, you can pick up where you left off when you log in again. If you don't do that and you get out of the program, you've lost everything. So please, please, please hit that Save Application button. When you're comfortable that everything is complete and accurate and how you want it, and it's well before 5 o'clock on the 15th, then you can just hit Submit Application. After you hit the Submit Application button, even if you do that in 2 weeks, you will not have access to it again. So once you hit that, it's finished. Next slide. Now there is a new question on the application this year, which really does not have anything to do with your application. The Baltimore Women's Giving Circle members indicated in a circle-wide survey last year that they want to explore providing more meaningful support to grassroots and community-led organizations. There isn't consensus, however, in the circle as to what those terms actually mean to our applicants and to grant recipients. So we thought the best way to learn is to ask. As stated in the instructions for that question, your answer is for our education purposes only, and it is not intended to impact the evaluation of your funding application at all, just for our information. Next slide. I want to take just a minute to review the question that talks about the category of funding request. Where we ask you, look at these options and select the one category that best describes your project or your organization's activities. The Giving Circle uses these categories to generally track the types of grants we historically make. We understand that most organizations or projects cover a number of categories, but we ask that you try to identify the one category that will fit your project best. If there is absolutely no way you can fit your project into one of these categories, then you can select the Other Please Specify category there at the end, and give some information on the category as you would describe it. I will tell you that there are very few grants that once they are approved that are submitted as others that retain that designation after they're funded. So generally, we can make it fit into one of the stated categories. So it would just be more helpful to us if you could try to do that at the outset. In any event, I want to assure you that no category gets preferential treatment or is more likely to be funded than another project. And I have the charts to prove it, that, you know, 1 year we'll fund a bunch of workforce development programs, and then next year it'll be something completely different. So just use the category that best describes your organization's projects and activities. Next slide. And this is where we can have questions on using the platform, if you have any questions on that.
There are several questions that have come in. And is there a breakdown for dates somewhere for the grant process flow chart?
Yes, it's in the application guide that's on the website.
Next, this is from Bob Payne. Thanks for this. Does an organization need to serve women both in Baltimore City and Baltimore County, or is it sufficient to serve women only in Baltimore City?
Yes, it is. You need not serve both. Those are the jurisdictions that we cover, but you don't have to span both the city and the county.
Jackie Doherty, is the one account / organization free for Baltimore Women's Giving Circle specifically, or is it Baltimore Community Foundation?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
I'm not sure I understand either. The Baltimore Women's Giving Circle is under the Baltimore Community Foundation.
That's our fiscal sponsor.
Yes, that's our fiscal sponsor.
Right.
If Jackie wants more information, she can reach out to the Giving Circle. Are there different pools of money or number of awards for project funds versus operating funds?
No.
Bob would like to know.
No. We have the pool of money that we have to award grants from is the amount of money that the members contribute every year. And it varies depending upon how many members we have and how much is contributed, but we don't divide it up between a certain designated amount for projects versus operating expenses.
Yeah, it's just decided by how many votes each recommendation gets.
Right.
Talia would like to know, if an organization is applying for program funding, do you prefer for the program to be a new program or a new service?
There's no preference, although no, there's no preference from a program perspective. Oftentimes, new projects or programs will be funding will be sought in order to get it off the ground. But once it is off the ground, then typically most organizations would then in following years apply for operating expenses, but it depends upon how your organization is structured and whether the money needs to go to a particular program because of its alignment with our mission.
The next question is from Susan Novak. Do we need to be invited to create a new account, or any eligible organization can go in and create an account?
That's correct. Just anybody can create their account. We just, again, want to make sure that we're not getting a lot of duplicates in there.
Next question from Jackie. If a member of our organization had a Baltimore Community Foundation account, is that the account that we're using for this grant opportunity, or does the organization set up an account specifically for the Baltimore Women's Giving Circle? I think she means the Baltimore Women's Giving Circle has its own account of funds for grants. Baltimore Community Foundation holds our funds derived from the money our members donate in dues each year.
Hi, this is Anne. I think the question is, if you apply to the Baltimore Community Foundation, can you also apply to the Baltimore Women's Giving Circle? Yes, they are completely separate. There's a login for the Baltimore Community Foundation. There's a completely separate login for the Baltimore Women's Giving Circle. They are not connected. If you get funds from the Community Foundation, you can still apply to the Baltimore Women's Giving Circle and vice versa.
Thanks. It wasn't so much the funding, it was the account. We had a grants professional who has left, and I'm pretty sure she had an account with Baltimore Community Foundation, but not Baltimore Women's Giving Circle. So I didn't want to set up an account for Baltimore Women's Giving Circle if we should be using the BCF account. The registration is all I was looking for.
I
So
hope it's
Yes,
that.
they're completely separate. So yes, you would set up a new one.
Perfect. That was the answer I was looking for. Thank you.
Okay, Laura Crandon, for operations grants, how is sustainability viewed? For example, if the request is to fund a case manager, do we need to address how that case manager would be maintained in subsequent years?
If you look in the guide, there is a question about sustainability, but that would apply to all grants.
Right.
We just want to make sure that the organizations are thinking about that, and that they're not setting up a brand new program and have no idea how they're going to fund it the following year. So yes, being able to answer a question about sustainability will definitely help the application.
And those are typical questions that you get at a site visit as well. But in some of that will come from the financial documents that you provide too, so that will raise questions with the teams.
Yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about the content of the application too in a few minutes.
And the last comment at this point is, thank you all. I have to sign off.
Well, we're glad you could be here.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit. I see that there's a question about this that just came in about the site visit, and I can talk a little bit about that. If you've made the first cut and the team is interested in finding out more about your organization, they will arrange with you for a site visit, and that's your opportunity to explain exactly what you're doing and sort of a way to show the team what you've been writing about, and really your chance to fill in the details. And the team will have questions for you potentially about your fund, your budget, or about how you go about finding people that you're trying to help, or sustainability might be another question that might come up. But it's your opportunity one-to-one to promote your program. Okay, so I'm going to talk about application and what goes into the application. So as Marianne mentioned, there's a cover sheet that talks about the demographics of the organization, key personnel, contact information. It's pretty routine information. And then we start getting into some of the key information about your organization. So there's a mission statement that you'll need to provide with a brief background or history of your organization. And some suggestions might be, when was your organization founded, by whom, what need in the community was it set up to address, what are the core values of your organization, and And then there will be a narrative section where you describe what you hope to achieve and how you will achieve your goals using the money from the grant request. Now, we know that some organizations have professional grant writers and some don't. We don't want an application to be a test for the grant writers. We train our readers to concentrate on evaluating the content of the application rather than whether the application uses sophisticated vocabulary or the latest jargon of philanthropy. So if you are submitting a grant for the first time and you're not really sure how to express yourself, just do your best, and we'll do our best to understand what it is that you're trying to achieve. Next slide, please. So the narrative, of course, is the most important part of your application, and we have tried to arrange the questions in a logical order. So basically what you're doing is you're telling us your story by answering these questions. What is the issue or opportunity in the community that you're trying to address, and how do you plan to address this issue or opportunity? So that could include the activities that you're going to offer and who will participate. How will you recruit the people that you want to help? Who will deliver these activities, whether it's your staff, and if you have partners, how will that key into your activities? Will you conduct evaluations to make program or project improvements? What are the ultimate outcomes relative to the issues that you plan to address? I don't want to be just reading the slide, but this is the heart of your application. So somebody asked about sustainability, and that will come into this narrative. How do you plan to continue your operations or project beyond the grant period? And why is this grant important to the success of your organization's mission or projects? Next slide, please. Before I get into the attachment, actually, I just want to say that this narrative question and the last question that I read will enable us, will enable you to tell us how important receiving this grant will be to the success of your project or organization. And this is a place where you can really express your passion and desire for your organization or project to succeed. It also will enable you to explain to us how your organization's goals fit in with the mission of the Baltimore Women's Giving Circle, which is very important for you to be able to do. We recommend that you complete the answers in Word and then copy and paste so that you'll be able to retrieve your application in case something happens when you're putting it onto our platform. We would hate for you to lose all your work if something technical goes wrong, as things are wont to do. Okay, now next slide, please. These attachments are required. You can also submit supplemental application like client testimonials and letters of recommendation. If you have any of these documents, any of this information online, you can provide a link to it instead of uploading it onto the platform. But the financial statement, the budget, the information about your board, and very importantly, the 501c3 status, those are all required, whether you upload them or give us a link. Next slide, please. We provide a budget template for you. When you pull it up, it's not going to look exactly like this. The expense category will be below the revenue category rather than being to the right of it. But this is the form that you will see. Next slide, please. So some of the costs that you can consider in that budget request are childcare costs for participants, transportation costs for participants, food expenses for participants, or recruitment costs for clients, volunteers, staff trainers. There are other budgetary issues that you can include, but this is just an example of some of them. Next slide, please. And again, these are optional attachments, partnership agreements, an annual report, and supplemental information. If you have links, you can provide those rather than attaching them. And I now give this back to Carmina for some general reminders.
Thank you, Ellen. And some of this we've already covered, but these are the things that we think bear repeating. It's really important that you tell us how what you do fits into our mission. That's how are you advancing opportunities for women and their families? And, that's the big question, that the first question that the grant teams will look at to make sure that what you do aligns well with what we do. And so and your narrative is your opportunity to explain that. So I suggest that you spend some time on it to make sure that that's clear and that it's not unclear, because that'll be the first question that the team will have. That and determining whether you are in fact a 501c3 organization. Those are the two kind of initial questions. The other thing is, we've already talked about general operations or project application. You need to kind of figure that out. It may come to you more as you go through the application. So that's why it's important that you save your work, because you'll have to change your application and reach out to us if you decide that you want to go in the different direction. Performance measures, again, you have to, how will you know that you made a difference, and how can you demonstrate that to others? So, and there's a past and future element to this. If you've been an organization who's been doing this work for a while, then it would be, I think, helpful to see how you've measured your past performance and how you're going to measure it in the future. But if you're a new organization, then what we really want to see you demonstrate is how you're going to see whether you've been successful or not. So these performance measures may be metrics, maybe they're not, but they should be clear, and it should be something that you can point to and that you can point to others as to how it is that what you're doing is working. Again, less than $25,000 is okay. You don't have to round up. It's totally up to you, whatever you think is the appropriate amount. And the last day to submit your application, I know you've heard it about 15 times today, but is December 15th at 5 p.m., not midnight. The application guide is available online through our website. And by the way, if you can't come up with the website, off the top of your head, if you Google the Baltimore Women's Giving Circle, it will take you directly to our website. So go there and read the guide. I think it's chock full of information and provides much more detail than these slides do. Or email us with your questions at that's the important part. You have to include the bwgc.org. Next slide, please. So what happens if you actually receive a grant? And this is, there are a couple of things. You will be contacted by the Post Grants Committee team, provided with a team of circle members who will be your liaison for the year. And they are there, they'll come to see how you're doing. We like to think that we're not looking over your shoulders as much as we're there to partner with you and help you if you need it. There's also another group, the Baltimore Grantee Connect Committee, and this group tries to make connections among the grantees, provide programs that may interest everyone, and support networking opportunities among grant recipients to ensure that that there's good communication in our community as to who's doing what, when, and how. And sometimes this is helpful. So before we take the last questions, I just wanted to thank you for coming here today. I know that it was it's a time out of an important, busy schedule, and also thank you for all that you do for our women and their families in our community, and wish you the best of luck with your applications. And now I guess we can take whatever remaining questions there are.
Sorry. Bob wants to know, we buy equipment supplies for use with our sports program for girls, except like soccer balls, goals, uniforms. Can these be included, or are all equipment supplies ineligible?
No. Those are definitely something you can apply for. They are. I mean, I don't know about your organization, but I'm assuming that it's that they support what you're doing in your organization for these children. So that's an allowable expense.
And I can't remember, did we, Susan Novak Smith wanted to know, will you be explaining more about the site visit? Did you get that question answered?
I hope
think-
so.
I think that Ellen did, yes.
Okay, thank you. And this has been an incredibly helpful professional presentation. Thank you. And another one, thank you for this great presentation. So it's always nice to get praise.
Well, I think that's it. Again, thank you very much for taking out the time to participate here today. And we look forward to seeing your applications. And Sally, and we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you, everyone. We really appreciate your interest.